Welcome to the Ascend Growth AI podcast, where we mix smart growth moves with a little AI magic. I'm Teresa. Let's dive in. For today's guest, we have Bosten Englestead, Director of Business Development at Sunbelt Business Brokers Utah. From knocking doors in 100-degree heat to sourcing $7 million deals through cold outreach, Boston's story is a masterclass in grit and growth. So, Bosten, welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks, Teresa, for having me on.
So let's have you start by sharing your journey with us.
Sure. Where do you want to start?
Let's start maybe a little bit before you joined Sunbelt Business Brokers.
Sure. Maybe I'll start college. So college, I went to Southern Utah University, just a school there locally. I got a degree in finance and a minor in professional sales, which is great. I enjoyed it, learned a lot. And then going through school, I did door-to-door solar for 3 years. So I did that. It taught me a lot. You get a lot of instant feedback while doing that. Some good, some not so good. So yeah, that's what I did to get through school. I did 18 credits every semester. So there wasn't really much time for work. And so my goal was to make enough every summer that I could pay for my poor college lifestyle throughout the year. So that's what I did for a few years. While I was there at school, I learned I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and own a business. My dad's a business owner. That's just kind of how I grew up and saw that. And so I was like, what better way than to work somewhere where you buy and sell businesses? Besides that, the stat is, 5% of businesses succeed after 5 years if they're started. If they're bought and transitioned, it's 95%. So it's a reverse statistic there. So I was like, well, why don't I just buy a business? And then I remembered, oh yeah, I'm a broke college student. One, I don't have the finances, and two, I don't have the knowledge on how to do that. I was like, let's go work somewhere where I can get both of those. So that's how I ended up here.
Okay, great. Yeah. And can you tell us what Sunbelt Business Brokers does?
Yes, we're sell-side advisors. So we help business owners sell their business. We will do buy-side a little bit more on like a contractual basis. So that's, helping somebody buy a business, but that's not our bread and butter, is really just helping business owners sell their business.
Usually people go to, at least what I've heard is biz, buy, sell, right? Do they usually do that plus go work with you guys?
Yeah. So our site is the second biggest place to go find a business behind Biz Buy Sell. Biz Buy
Okay.
Sell's got us beat by quite a ways, but yeah, Biz Buy Sell's like the Zillow of businesses, right? It's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
So you can find a lot of businesses there. We use it. There's also some other places that you can kind of put to the public markets. Like Axial has a site where you can put stuff like that. But yeah, and some stuff doesn't make it to Biz Buy Sell because we have strategics or different things that are trying to buy it. So.
And then, so what do you do as a business development director?
Yeah. So basically, I just try to drum up business. So I go and I contact people who have a sphere of influence on business owners. So think financial advisors, accountants, consultants. These are people that a business owner would go to if they have questions or as they're planning, their finances or whatever it might be. That's who they're going to. And so that's who I'm talking to, just so that if they have a business owner that's looking to sell, we can talk to them and help them understand what that process looks like. I also will do cold outreach myself, just walk into a business and introduce myself. So yeah, that's kind of what my job consists of.
Okay. And then, so I guess for you, your customers are people who are already looking to buy then, or looking to sell, either way.
Yeah, looking to sell their business mostly. We've got a great array or database of buyers. We're always looking for other great buyers, but yeah, again, our cup of tea is selling businesses, right? So that's who we're looking for. That's where we make most of our revenue and money.
Are there a lot of businesses that are looking to sell? Like, what does that typically look like?
So Biz Buy Sell actually did a study or a survey with it was between 500 and 1,000, but they asked them, some general questions, and what they found was 50% of business owners are looking to sell their business,
Oh, wow.
and 20% of those are looking to sell it this year. And so I'm not sure the demographics of where that is, or, stats can always be a little bit misleading, but even if they're off a little bit, that's quite a high number.
Yeah, that is. And when they're looking to sell, I guess, have they been in the business for a while, or is it typically more baby boomers looking to retire? Have you seen those stats?
Yeah, so sometimes it's a lot of baby boomers looking to retire. They call it the silver tsunami. And
Okay.
so half of the businesses owned in the US are owned by baby boomers.
Yes.
And so as they're retiring, then they're selling their businesses. And I just finished the book, what was it? The Millionaire Next Door. And they actually predicted that the silver tsunami would have started about 10 years earlier. But the problem is baby boomers haven't been selling off their businesses and retiring. They've just continued to work.
Mm.
And so it's become more of like a lifestyle, or like, this is what I do, rather than like a job or like a true business, I guess. And so it's hard for them to step away from that after doing it for 20, 30, 40 years.
Okay. When someone thinks about selling, like I guess maybe when you call them and they're already thinking, like how long does the process usually take until they actually do sell?
So it kind of depends how ready they are and um, how they're wanting to do that exactly, right? If they're like, hey, I want to sell right now, generally it'll take us a week or two just to get marketing materials together to go to the market. And then after that, we're trying to bring them 3 offers in 45 to 60 days. And so that's, you know, about 2 months. Hopefully, we're bringing them 3 offers. And it depends on the business, right? Some businesses, it's going to take longer after that to close. For example, a business that's using SBA financing, the SBA is notoriously slow because it's the government and a bank combined. And so it's just loads of red tape, and it's just takes forever. So that's 3 to 4 months just to get the financing secured, right? So even though we did our job in 2 months, it can still take another 4 months to close. So on the quickest end, we had one close in 3 weeks from going to market last
Mhm.
year, which is great, but it was seller financed, and we knew that, hey, this is the deal structure that would have to make sense. And they were good with that. So that's what we did. So yeah, anywhere between 3 weeks and, 8 to 12 months if they're ready to go to market, right? If they're more exploring and wanting to, go to market in 4 months, or like just know what they need to do to get ready to go to market, then yeah, that engagement could take much longer.
If you get 3 buyers within 60 days, that's pretty quick. So do you have a wait list of buyers, like, already ready, or how do you even find the buyers?
We have much more buyer demand than seller demand. So it's a great time to be selling a business.
Really? Okay.
So yeah, if we had more good cash flowing solid businesses, we'd never run out of buyers at this point.
Okay. What do you think
So
caused that?
I think a lot of people realize, kind of like in that book, The Millionaire Next Door, a lot of people who build real wealth are business owners. They own a business. They kind of run their life like a business with expenses, and receipts, and everything like that. So a lot of people want to own a business, it's not necessarily freedom, but flexibility in their life, because sometimes you've got to do a bid at 8 o'clock at night, but maybe that's because you were skiing that morning on the mountain or something, right? So you've got some flexibility there, but it's definitely not freedom, right? Another thing is sometimes a business that's already operating and been operating for 10 plus years, that cash flow is pretty predictable. And
Yes.
so you can buy that if you know the industry and run it to make a good living.
And I wonder also, do you think it's because there's been a lot of layoffs at corporations? Is that contributing to it too?
Yeah, that could be part of it. Some very highly successful people that are ready to go back to being an entrepreneur, right?
I wouldn't have thought the demand of buyers is, I mean, that there's more buyers than sellers. So that's interesting. Do you use AI currently in your job?
Yeah, we use it in a few different ways. I mean, obviously, I use it to help me write my emails,
Yeah.
because it's just such a time saver. We'll use it. I use ChatGPT or Gemini all the time just for different things that I'm doing. Sometimes we're, reviewing contracts and having it review it for us. Uh, a lot of different things that way. I use a data scraper called Seamless.AI. That's
Okay.
great. There's also like Apollo. Zoom Info's there, but it's more for a much larger business, an enterprise style business, and where we're, a handful of people, it doesn't make sense for us, but same kind of idea. So yeah, we use AI quite a bit in
Okay.
what we do.
Love it. That's great. And so what's working well in Sunbelt Business Brokers right now? What are you proud of?
We run a really good process. A lot of brokers in our space don't have as much of the professional background that we have. And so while I'm still young, I do or have some of those soft skills that's needed for talking to people and doing that. The two partners that I work with, one of them is a PhD in accounting. He was a professor for about 10 years. Before that, he was an auditor at KPMG.
Yeah, KPMG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That sounded wrong. He was an auditor there and then at a hedge fund. So his background's just been in valuations for 2 decades, pretty much. So he's great. The other one is Dean Wiltsey, and he's taken the company public on the NASDAQ. He was a for-hire CEO for private equity for over 2 decades. And his first gig, he always jokes he got it because nobody else wanted it. They were losing a few $1,000,000 a year.
Mm.
But he got in there, he turned it around. They actually went public on the NASDAQ in 2004, sold to Microsoft in 2007 for just under $500 million. So Dean's been in M&A for a really long time.
That's great.
That's what we do really well is, our professional background. We are not an investment bank, and so our deal size is a little bit smaller than them, but they're still great businesses that need representation, right? So our sweet spot is kind of 2 to 25 million in enterprise value. An investment bank, a boutique one will start at 10 million.
Okay.
But they really won't go much below. They won't go below that at all. And a real true investment bank starts at about 25. And so we fill that gap where it is a good business that needs professional representation, but isn't going to get looked at by investment banks.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're surrounded by great leaders. That's great for you to learn from.
Yeah. It is a great place for me to learn.
Yeah. On the flip side, what's been frustrating?
I mean, there's always frustrations. It's a long sales cycle is what we're dealing with. In solar, it was long, right? It was 4 to 6 months for me to get paid. Here as well, it's, not far off of that. It's 4 to 12 months. And so that can be a little bit frustrating just because some deals will fall apart at the finish line or who knows. There's always that. And then you've got to start over or do whatever. So that's
for all that time and work.
Yeah. So it's a little bit frustrating, but we are really good at getting them through. It's more of just like, as it gets closer to that deadline, there becomes more pressure and more like anxiety on both sides, the seller and buyer. And so you kind of have to become a psychiatrist, like kind of keep them both happy and keep them on track, right? Which is what our job is. I don't know. I think sometimes one thing that's a little bit frustrating is some business owners have high expectations for what their business should be worth. I've talked to some businesses and they've gone to market and the broker that took them to market or, whoever was representing them didn't keep things disclosed well. So employees found out. And so they kind of got burned in that sense.
Yeah.
And so they're like, I never want to go to market again. They really want to sell, but they just don't want to go to market.
Wow.
And so it's just a hard situation to be in because to get them the best price, really, we need to go, like we'll strategically reach out to people even, but I mean, you still kind of have to go to market. So.
Right. Yeah, that's wow.
Yeah.
How many deals, you talked earlier about the deals falling through after a couple months. What percentage does that happen?
I'd say it's not often. We actually looked the other day and our stat for closing is about 80% on businesses that we go in feeling pretty confident that they will close. Now there's, our range is 2 to 25 million. We'll get some below that are, much harder to sell because their cash flow is less than 100,000 a year. And that's, harder for somebody to want to buy that business and run it because they can go get a job that's making them that. And they don't have to go through the stresses of being a business owner. So those types of businesses are much harder to sell. So you take those ones out that are making, cash flow less than 150, 250,000 a year, because once you had debt service and things, new owner would be making less than 100. You take those out, our close rates, 80 to 90%.
Wow, that's really impressive.
So,
yeah, that's great. Where do you want Sunbelt Business Brokers to be 6 to 12 months from now?
So we kind of operate under a few different flags, right? So Sunbelt Business Brokers is great. I'd like to be more prevalent here in Utah, and we're working on that and doing better and better. It's one of those things that you can't really rush, though, and get customers immediately because it is a slow sales cycle.
Yeah.
It's not like we're selling, mink couture here and they sell blankets. And so they can really ramp up sales or push those because it's a B2C type business. Where it's B2B and it's relationship based, it takes a long time to do that. But in 8 12 to 18 months, I'd like to be one of the biggest players here in Utah. In addition, we specialize in selling roof and gutter businesses, really like home exterior businesses. And so we're going nationwide with that brand. I'd really like to have that up and running and doing well, and then just getting referrals out of that brand.
And actually, I was going to ask you, what industries do you cover? So, like, you want to do roofing nationwide, but you do all industries right
Yeah, we
now.
do. So we're pretty
Okay.
agnostic, especially if it's below about $3 million of value. We're really agnostic. A lot of home services, the pet industry, med spas, industrial.
Okay.
I think what else we do? Business services, so like accounting,
Okay.
marketing, stuff like that. A little bit of retail, a little bit of food.
So everything.
Yeah. So pretty much everything.
Okay. Do you kind of qualify them? Like you said, that has to be making a certain amount of revenue
Yeah.
in order to. Okay. Yeah.
We kind of go off of 3 metrics when we're qualifying a business. As long as they have 2, it's good. So we like them to be in business for 5+ years. We like them to be making at least $250,000 in seller discretionary earnings, SDE, which is just an adjusted EBITDA metric. And the third one is just to have realistic expectations on the business's value. So, for example, there was a company that we worked with, and we came back to them and said, yeah, we can get 2.2 million on the market, right? And they're like, yeah, we want 5 million. I'm like, okay, well, there's no point in us taking you to market if
Yeah.
you want 5 million and won't accept what's
Right.
reasonable. And so that's another one where, yeah, it's just one of those metrics that we won't take them to market if they're not reasonable.
Right. Right. I mean, that sounds like it's just going to be very difficult. The whole process would be difficult if that's the case. If
Yeah,
you're
we
not.
try to go in and we'll put it in our contract, like a minimum that we'll bring them. And so that, if an offer comes in below that, we won't even let them know. We won't even consider it an offer until it's actually, where we think that the business is valued at, which is why it's so great to have Remington on our team, who does all of our business valuations and has been doing that for 2 decades.
He knows what he's
Because
talking about.
hopefully he knows what he's talking about, right? We put our money where our mouth is. If we say that we can get a number and we end up not getting that, well, guess what? Now we don't get paid. So we've got to be pretty right about that.
And so, what about you in terms of owning you got into this because you wanted to own your own business? Like, what are you thinking for your own business?
Yeah, I'm learning more and more each day. I'm seeing some businesses that, I'm getting more interested in or would like to own. I haven't seen anything yet that I'm like, yes, that's what I want, but it's going to come up eventually, right? Um, it's interesting. Some businesses we look at and we're like, wow, I really thought that you'd make more money in this business,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it's a sexy type business that looks good, like a med spa or whatever, right? And then you look at another business and you're like, you're making how much money doing what exactly? Like I didn't even get what you are doing, but you're making a ton of money doing it. So
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, can you give an example of that? Like, what industry? You don't have to say the businesses, obviously, but what industries
yeah,
have?
this one was just a guy that has a lot of connections in the diesel engine space.
Okay.
Yeah, he just had a lot of connections. So he would broker engines, he'd remanufacture engines, lots of things like that. And so, yeah, he just had a lot of connections that worked out for him. It wasn't anything different that nobody else could do, right? It was just, he just knew people. So as he'd just been working there for decades, he just knew it really well.
What would you tell your younger self if you were to do things differently and start over again?
I don't know if I would do much different. I think if I wanted to pursue more of a traditional finance role, I think I would have told myself to do more of an internship in that space rather than do sales during the summer. But I really think it turned out well for me. I built a lot of great skills in doing that, built some pretty decent connections and friendships as well. So yeah, I don't know if I'd do much different. Then again, I am fairly young, and so I don't have much to look back on and regret yet, right?
I mean, but that's good, right? You don't have any regrets. That's exactly the way to live. And then I guess, going door to door, cold calling. I mean, that takes skill, right? And that takes, some courage, right? But I think it's an important skill to have. Like, what tips would you give to someone who is looking into selling, and handling all the no's?
We always had a thing where the first door was always the hardest door every day. And sometimes it was just the car door, right? Because we're in door to door, you drive out to an area that you're knocking or going to work for the day. And you get there and you're like, man, do I really want to go talk to people and knock on doors? And, that fear and anxiety kind of builds up. And so, yeah, sometimes the hardest door was just your car door, getting out of it. Once you got going, it really wasn't bad. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember why, I like this or tolerate it, right?
Right.
I heard somebody say this the other day. They're like, people are my favorite things in the world, but they're also they're also the source of a lot of my discomfort and anger sometimes, right? So I can relate to that, especially being in sales, just because people are awesome. I love people. Some of my favorite people are people, right? But it's just like, man, they're so hard sometimes to work with. So door to door is great, or sales in general. It's always great. I got into it because I didn't have a lot of skills at the time because I was young and I wanted to get through school quick. And, sales is one of those things where if you're on the revenue end of bringing in business to a company, you'll get paid more than if you're seen more as an expense. Where I didn't have any skills, I didn't have much to be paid for, right? And so you go out and earn your keep every day, which is hard, but it's also a way to push yourself, grow a little bit. I think athletes do really well at it also because they see just in sales in general, right? Athletes do well because they get instant feedback all the time while doing sports, and sales is the same way.
Yeah.
And they're willing to work hard, and they know that it takes a lot of dedication and time to get to where they want to be with their goals.
Right. Right. No, that's a really important skill. I was listening to the Diary of a CEO the other day, and he said one of the biggest skills he learned was doing, telemarketing, right? And it's just so important when you want to be a business leader. I mean, you have to usually start by selling. So,
Yeah.
no, good for you.
Or a business owner in general, right? Like eventually you have to sell something and you have to
Exactly.
talk to people and sell it. So
Right.
my mom always says like, oh, I could never sell anything to anybody. I'm like, well, yeah, you've never had to, but
Mm,
if you have to, or it's you that you're selling, it's a little bit easier to do that.
exactly. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm sure we can put my information below, but a good way to reach me is just at my email, benglestead@sunbeltnetwork.com. I'd love to connect with some of your audience and hear from them.
Okay, perfect. Well, Boston, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's really interesting to hear your journey, and how Sunbelt is doing and just all your sales tips. So thank you for sharing that.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you got value, share it, tag us, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Catch you next time on the Ascend Growth AI podcast.